Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Grace of a Military Child in Life podcast. Military families are not like your traditional family. They are strong, brave, resilient, and some of the most incredible people I know. My name is Gracie, a U.S. Army brat, and I am your host. I am honored to be able to give military family members like myself a place for them to share their stories and experiences in the military life. Stay tuned for this week's guest.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Grace of Military Child in Life. Today, I'm here with Andrea. So, Andrea, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, start by telling us what it's like for you being a military family member.
Absolutely. So, it has been such a wild ride being a military family, and you don't know what you're getting into. You know, everybody says, well, you know what you're getting into. And I like to come back at them with, that's like saying to somebody, you know what it's like to have a baby and what it's like to grow your family. You really, truly don't know what you don't know until you get into it. And it has been an absolute privilege and an absolute honor, and continues to be so as I raise military kids. You know, it's a really prideful and amazing life that you get to be a part of, and to see that and instill that in the next generation is amazing.
Yeah, because raising military kids is like, a job in its own self, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know when moves are coming up or adjusting to the new normal. You have to really go with the flow and, not just yourself, but then preparing children to go through that is a whole new realm.
Absolutely. It's amazing to see how, I hate the word resilient, but really kids are like rubber bands. They do snap back over time. And it's not to say that it doesn't take a toll, right? That we're starting to see more and more data that supports the fact that this is a hard life, and it is hard on our military dependents, on our kiddos specifically. But we also have a lot of privilege in the fact that we get to be that person for them throughout all of the uncertainty, the unknown, the transitions, the ups and the downs. And we have that privilege of being able to explain that to them, and to be there for them, and to be their support network through thick and thin. And it's also been really exciting, or really interesting, to see how close my kids have gotten as we've moved, as things have changed. They rely very much on each other and turn to one another. And that's really been heartwarming as well. I'm not sure if that's common in all military families or if it's just mine. I wouldn't think that would be the case, but it has been nice to see how strong their bonds have been and how much they've grown to love and care for one another as we've moved schools, moved states, moved to different countries, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, it's like a built-in best friend, because you move somewhere and you have to start all over. You have to meet new friends. You have to put yourself out there. And for some kids, it's easy to just walk up to the first stranger they see and say hi and start a conversation, introduce themselves. But for some kids, I was always a little bit more shy. So it's harder sometimes to put yourself out there. And, having at least one sibling that you're able to move around with who's always going to be there. My sister and I are 15 months apart. So, we kind of went through the same things at the same times, and we understood, and I mean, we grow up and we have different interests and hobbies and all of that, but we lived life together. We were both there, and my mom got the phone call that my dad was injured. So we had been through so many things together that it was just, we had the one person who understood that we could rely on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is such a blessing to see that and to see them grow and change together. And it's also a very conscientious effort to make sure that we're doing things that keep them together as much as we can. One of the things with this move was finding a school where they would all be in one place together, like one building. They would see each other passing in the halls or see each other at recess. And so that was really important, special, hard to find, but worth looking for, just so that they could continue to grow that bond as they were meeting and making this transition. So that was a big one.
Yeah, because even just passing in the hall, that you have somebody there with you. Might not be in the same classes or whatever, but you have somebody who is there with you. I will say Absolutely. One of the best things was my sister and I was in 6th grade and she was in 5th grade. And then there were another set of sisters who moved in. And one I grew super close to. My English teacher kind of pulled me out and was like, hey, there's a new kid. Can you show her around, kind of be nice to her, be friends with her. She's new here. And so, I became her friend and, we sat at lunch together. We played we didn't have recess, but, when we could, we were with each other. We had most of the same classes, but then come to find out her younger sister was in my sister's class. And they were friends. So it was really cool when, the 4 of us, kind of made that connection that our sisters were friends in a grade younger and then we were friends in a grade higher. So, you really never know what happens. Some coincidences, just happen like that. But it's really cool to have somebody. Yeah, exactly.
And one of the things I tell coaching clients, so I have a coaching practice. I'm an executive coach, leadership coach, and I do some speaking. One of the things that I often tell them, and it applies to this life too, is control the controllables, right? So things like selecting schools, you don't always get to pick. Sometimes there aren't options where you're assigned or where you move to. But if you do have a chance to control that and it's something that is important or special to you, control that controllable, because it does help you have some sense of maybe like an anchor almost within this life that you wouldn't otherwise get. So that's been one thing that I've really noticed is whatever I can, whenever I can, making that happen, whether it's part of it initially was through starting my own business and being able to have a job that I can take no matter where I go and to have something that supports my family no matter where we're stationed and whatnot. But then also things like schools, things like sometimes you get to choose housing, sometimes you don't. But whenever you do have the chance to control it, take advantage of it and work that in your favor. Work it so it works for you and your family, that you don't let people make decisions that you could make on your own just because you put it off or it seems like a lot of work. Find a way to control it on your own terms, because so much of this lifestyle takes the control out of your hands. It's nice to put back into your hands what you absolutely can.
Yeah. It seems that, just probably just the way it falls is that so many people who are in the military, our military spouses, military kids, even, we're all so much type A people that we like everything to be in order, which I guess, is part of the military too. Like everything is in order. Like there's a method to doing everything. But at the same point, so much is out of your control. You don't necessarily get to pick your duty station. Sure, you might be able to rank them, but the chances that you get one of your top 3 are pretty much slim. Right. So I do love that. Like controlling what you can is so important because it is so rare that you'll be able to control your entire life, because those orders come through. You're going to have to move. You're going to have to, there's a TDY or deployment coming up or whatever the case may be. So it's very much, you kind of just got to flow with the life. And if you don't, then, it can be challenging. And so when you find those things that you can control, it's a little easier to let go of the control of the things that you can't control.
Absolutely. And it is very ironic, the fact that there are so many of us that are very type A, very organized, very, like to have things done a certain way in a certain order in a certain time. And we find our way into this lifestyle, by love, by choice, by however you get here. It is really fun to see that. But then it's also, like you said, kind of the lessons that you learn along the way, right? Part of being a military spouse was learning all of these different ways about doing things. Like you did have to establish more, like even I, through marriage, became more organized and more, regimented, I guess, in some of my daily routines and things like that. It's interesting how that will trickle down, not just to spouse, but then also to kids, and just the way you approach things in your life.
Yeah, because you kind of have, you come in, no matter what role that you're in, you come in and you're like expecting this life that I think we see in the movies, more than anything of, either it's this sunshine and rainbows or it's this very traumatic, like, war experience. And it doesn't necessarily depict what we go through. But, you kind of go in expecting that, and then you learn so much along the way. Things about yourself you never knew, things about, your family, or even going through different states or countries. You learn so much about the history of every place you go that, you become one of the locals for a little while. And that's one of the coolest things too. And, you might never think you'd like living on the West Coast. And then you go over to the West Coast and love it. So there's so much that you learn throughout this lifestyle that you would not have learned without it.
Absolutely. And what's interesting, if we relate it back to our initial thought about kids, is they get to see so much, they get to experience so much, they get to do so much, but then they also have friends all over, which has been really rewarding and interesting to see. Not only do they know more about different states and even different countries than most kids their age, they can say they've lived there, they have friends or acquaintances still there. And then we also have the opportunity to go back and see friends or acquaintances, and we're being mindful that we're not the only ones that had been moving. Our friends have been moving around too. So that offers opportunities to go see friends in Georgia, friends in Virginia, friends back in Arizona, wherever they are. You still have those ties and those bonds, and kids feel connected no matter where they are. They have that opportunity to plug in a lot of different places. So that's been really fun and interesting to see as well. It's been great for me professionally, personally, but it's also great to see that for my kids, especially now as they're getting a little bit older into school, having friends and pen pals in all these different areas is really cute.
Yeah, no, and I love that because, when I lived in Texas, it was hard for me to understand because it was my first time living on base. I was 9 years old. And so when we moved there for my dad's recovery, it was like, okay, well, what am I going to do? My friend's moving. Like, how do I process this? How does this work? Like, I didn't understand the fact of moving. But then, going through it, it's like, oh, well, you're moving to Hawaii and you're moving to Washington and you're moving to Georgia, or, we all, it's like the dandelion, that reference to military kids. You just blow wherever the wind takes you, and you plant roots and you grow again, and then you blow wherever the wind takes you again. And that's like the coolest thing. And even like you said, I look back today as a young adult that I really don't have friends where I am. I don't have many local friends, but I have friends all around the world who I know I could call and they would do whatever they needed to do for me at the drop of a dime. And I would, be the same and there for them. And that's just a connection and bond you form within the military community. And I know it's the same with like service members and spouses too, but from the kids' perspective, like it's incredible and the best, most rewarding part of this life.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. I grew up in the same small hometown. I had a high school that was so teeny tiny. I think there were 30-ish in my graduating class. So I moved back to my hometown-ish last summer. I couldn't quite commit to that small of a hometown, but like I moved back to the next biggest home, like town close to where I grew up. And it's interesting to see that it's very hard to plug in if you are not from somewhere. And that's something that I kind of took for granted as we moved when we were doing the military life, is that wherever we were, it was easy to plug and play into other military communities because it's just sort of the way of life. You know, you see the moving truck show up, you go over, you knock on the door, you say, how are you doing? Whatever. But here it's different. Most people have never left this town.
Right.
Most people, have never had a passport at 40, let alone their kids at, ages 2 and 4.
Right.
We live that life, and it's so amazing, but it's also so hard to integrate into new places where it's maybe not common. And we don't talk about that a lot as families transition out of the military into whatever their, next chapter is going to be as a veteran. What happens then if they do that ETS to a final destination that isn't a military community? Are they plugging in well? Is it easy for them? What are the resources there? Because here it's very military appreciative, but maybe not so military understanding from an active duty perspective. People have a high awareness of the local guard units and things like that, but it is quite different from active duty. And so that would be one thing, I guess, if we say anything today, is make sure that if you are moving around, if you are maybe moving out or transitioning out of the military for whatever reason, take special care when you're looking at those communities that you're moving into. Make sure you're really digging for resources because they are there if they aren't a heavily military area. And know that you're going to find some really good support no matter where you go, but you might have to ask for it more in an area that isn't a military dense population.
Yeah, because you're so used to military bases and, installations, and right outside, it's military USA no matter where you are, because more than likely a lot of retirees are still out surrounding, those areas. And when you move, like our closest base is an Air Force base, and it's 2 hours away, and it's still so hard to, that 2-hour time difference is a lot. And there's not much down where we are. And it's something that I struggled with as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, young teenager moving into an area where no one understood what military life was. I said, oh yeah, I just moved from Texas. And they're like, why'd you move here? Why did you come from Texas? Like, why do you talk weird? Why do you have because even in Florida, we don't have Southern accents, so right. It's like you're trying to fit into an area that, everyone has made their little friend groups, and you're trying to push yourself in. And that's never easy to do when, bonds are already formed since kindergarten.
Mm-hmm. Very much. Very much. I agree with that. And it's also been really rewarding this last year. This was our first year here. My girls have also been able to have the opportunity to share with their friends, what their dad's in the Air Force. What does that mean? He doesn't live here. He lives in Washington, D.C. This is what he does. See them share that with others who might not have had any prior exposure to military life, and to see the pride that they have in that, and to see the awareness that they bring to others. And we celebrate Veterans Day. We do those things maybe a little bit differently or more than some of their classmates do, but it's been nice to see them bring that message here and carry it along with them. I would imagine no matter where we go. But here it's been really heartwarming to still see that even though our family looks different, although our family's separated, that they get to take that message no matter what. And they still are going to be military kids no matter what. And the pride that they have in that is really, it's heartwarming.
Yeah. That pride that you have as a military kid, I mean, my dad's been retired for 10 years now, and it's something that never fades away because you're just so proud of, of really what it stands for, of what you've been through, what you've gone through, what you go through, and what those around you, you know, the service and the sacrifice of really the entire family of your friends, of, you know, the families that surround you. It's really something special that you don't necessarily just give up. And, you know, it takes a lot to break that, you know, pride. And I really don't think there's anything that could ever break that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to ask you, and you kind of already answered it, but what is a piece of advice that you would give to another military spouse?
Ooh. Mm-hmm. I would say, this is a good one. So many different pieces of advice, but given what we've been talking about today, specifically around kids and family and moving, I know it is incredibly hard to tenor emotions and feelings and things, especially when they run high, especially when there's things brought into your life that maybe you had no control over and you don't feel like you control anything because there are no controllables. Remember that your kids are going to read you. They're going to play off of you. They're going to play off of your emotions and how you anticipate things. So, regardless of, if we're dealing with any kind of kids, but especially military kids, you have the opportunity to set the tone about what this is going to be. If dynamics change in your family, if you have a PCS, if you have a TDY coming up, if you're going to geo-batch, whatever is coming up that is a big change that impacts the entire family and specifically your kiddos, how you react to it is going to be how they react to it. And even though it is hard, sometimes you aren't meant to hold yourself together all the time. That's not at all what I'm saying. But when you can take that chance and take that opportunity to make that message, not that everybody has to be happy about this move. Everybody can be sad and miss our friends and miss our family that was here, or, our school that we really liked, or the ice cream shop that we went to. But make sure that you're also talking about all the opportunity. Remember, we didn't think we would ever find an ice cream shop that we liked anymore. And it took us 6 different ice cream shops and we found this one. So remind them that there is that opportunity to still have that adventure and to still be on search for that next best ice cream shop or their next best friend at school, and remind them that there's still the opportunity to always come back, that those friends are going to be there. This ice cream shop's going to be there. You can still keep in contact depending on the age of the kids, via FaceTime, or my littles write notes to their past teachers and some of their past friends. So it just depends, but make sure that you remind them that they still can keep in touch, and always be mindful of how you act and react around them, because they're going to pick up on what to do based on your emotions. So,
yeah, I absolutely love that. And it's so true that, you don't always have to hold yourself together, but your kids are going to notice, if something really upsets you, then more than likely it's going to upset them just as much, if not more. So,
exactly. And it is okay to be sad sometimes, and it is okay to have feelings. Like, everybody's sad, and I will openly say that I miss my friends, but I also make sure to share and point out that I make it effort to talk to my friends, and they hear me talking to my friends on the phone, or see me FaceTiming, or they know I'm going to go take a trip to see my friend Kara. That way they also know that you can maintain relationships even though you're not in the same town as them. So long term, you can do that. You can have relationships for a long time, even without living right next door to them or seeing them in school every day. So what you demonstrate is what the kids will pick up too.
Yeah, it's all based on leading by example, and they're gonna follow it. So Absolutely. It's definitely great. And then if you would like to share, where can listeners connect with you?
Absolutely. So I'm most often on LinkedIn. my name's Andrea Singsaas, and my business is the Tiny Group. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And I am a mill kid mom and former military spouse, but also a military spouse advocate. And a lot of my work is tied to upstream suicide prevention within the military community as a consultant. So happy to help if there's anybody that needs anything, or any way that I can support anybody through their transitions, personally or professionally. Find me, connect with me. Would love to meet some more friends out there.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Andrea, for being on the podcast and sharing so much about military life and what it's been like for you and your kids.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Grace of a Military Child and Life podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a like, follow, and comment. Also, be sure to check out Instagram and Facebook at Grace of a Military Child and Life for more awesome content. For information on the podcast, Military Child Bigs and Littles, Go AMCL blog, or other resources, visit www.goamcl.org. You can also email me at Gracie, that's GRACIE @GOAMCL.org, with any questions or comments. To be a guest on the podcast, you can schedule it at www.goamcl.org/schedule a podcast, all one word, or contact me via social media or email. Stay tuned for the next episode where another incredible story is shared.